Join us as we travel to the land of Singapore. Singapore is one of the global north countries. The global north countries are the richest and most industrialized countries in the world. Did you know that Singapore is the only country to go from third world to first world in one generation? Now, Singapore is famous for being a global financial center. We are going to explore more of Singapore by discussing their demography, politics, economy, and social-cultural. Let us start off by discussing the demography of Singapore.
As of 2021, Singapore's population was around 5.45 million, while population size and growth by the year of 2022. The resident population grew by 2.2% from 2021 to 4.7 million as at end of June 2022. Within the resident population, citizens grew by 1.6% to 3.55 million, while permanent residents grew by 6.3% to 0.52 million. Singapore is a small but densely populated city-state with a multicultural society spanning 42 kilometers from east to west and 23 kilometers from north to south. Population size, religion structure, and changes have significant effects on production, investment, and consumption activities as well as community development and social networks.
The CMIO framework divides Singapore society into four major ethnic groups: Chinese, Malays, Indians, and others. Ethnic groups like the Eurasians, a people with a mixture of European and Asian ancestry, fall under the other category. There are four official languages in Singapore: English, Malay, Mandarin, and Tamil. Singapore is also one of the most religiously diverse societies in the world. Singapore is a multi-religious society with five main religious groups: Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity.
Singapore's politics.
The three primary duties of the Singaporean Parliament are as follows: determine and create the nation's laws, oversee the economic and finances of the nation, utilize inquisitions to keep an eye on the ministries and the dominant political party. However, not all members of parliament are selected through national elections. Three categories can be used to group legislators: chosen member of parliament, non-constituency member of parliament, and suggested member of parliament. The Prime Minister is the actual head of state. In Singapore, the leader of political party with the most representatives in the legislature. From 1959 to 1990, Lee Kuan Yew served as Singapore's Prime Minister. The highly centralized and meritocratic Singaporean paradigm elects government officials by appointment rather than election. The government, as a result, runs efficiently and logically. Singapore has almost no corruption in a part of the world where it can be commonplace. Mr. Lee discusses his views on Singapore's development and place in the New World Order in the interview that follows. Lee Hsien Loong, Prime Minister of Singapore from 2004 until now.
The economy of Singapore.
In the 1960s, the city-state of Singapore was an underdeveloped country with a GDP per capita of less than $320. After Singapore's independence, they continued to experience problems. More than two-thirds of its population was living in slums and squatter settlements on the city's fringe. During the colonial times, Singapore's economy was centered on entrepreneur trade, but this economic activity offered little prospect for job expansion in the post-colonial period. Singapore was forced to look for opportunities well beyond its borders to spearhead its industrial development. Pressured to find work for their people, the leaders of Singapore began to experiment with globalization. In order to attract investors, Singapore had to create an environment that was safe, corruption-free, and low in taxation. To make this feasible, the citizens of the country had to suspend a large measure of their freedom in place for a more autocratic government. Anyone caught conducting narcotic trade or intensive corruption would be met with the death penalty. As foreign investment money poured in, Singapore began focusing on developing its human resources in addition to its infrastructure. Today, it is one of the world's fastest growing economies. Its GDP per capita has risen to an incredible $60,000 US, making it one of the strongest economies in the world.
Singapore's top 10 imports: electrical machinery and equipment, mineral fuels and oils, machinery, pearls and precious stones, optical, photographic, and medical equipment, aircraft, spacecraft and parts, plastics, organic chemicals, vehicles, and essential oils and resinoids.
For a small country with few natural resources, Singapore's economic ascension is nothing short of remarkable. By embracing globalization, free market capitalism, education, and pragmatic policies, the country has been able to overcome its geographic disadvantages and become a leader in global commerce.
And lastly, the socio-cultural of Singapore.
Singapore's lifestyle is multicultural, with each of these ethnic communities maintaining their unique way of life at the same time living harmoniously. What makes Singapore culture unique? They are made up of Chinese, Malay, Indian, and various other ethnicities. Cultural heritage is what makes Singapore. The 5 culture values of Singapore are all about their nation: family, community, consensus, and harmony. Singapore is considered as one of the cleanest countries. There is absolutely no littering anywhere. To maintain the cleanliness, chewing gum is banned in Singapore. Chinese Buddhism happens to be the major religion in Singapore, owing to the large population of southern Chinese immigrants and their descendants. It is a diverse nation whose food culture is a melting pot of flavors and aromas. Singaporeans have a predominantly strict attitude to life, marked by clear authority structures and strict social status lines.
So, have you learned a lot about Singapore? Have you enjoyed our trip with us? It's definitely a wild ride. I thank you for watching.